Good. There's Kara.
Violet, that'd be a gold star if you did that.
And Melissa. So fun.
What's your hair, Violet?
Hi, Kara.
What? That'd be a gold star.
Hi,
So does anyone know how fast your internet has to be to get your video to work? Because mine just keeps clicking off.
I think if anybody has answers to how to get reliable internet in the Valley, I would be interested in that answer.
Hi, Kevin.
Yeah.
Hi, Nicola.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Hi, Rowan.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi.
All right. Well, Laurel, I think we should kick it off because we all know how precious time is. So we may have some more people joining us, but hi, it's so nice to feel connected to all of you and actually know who you are. And this might qualify as my quota.
Yeah, because I've been
time for the next few weeks.
where you are a lot of times, but and then the coronavirus happened, and then we had to go apart.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll be back.
So all of you know Laurel and I, no need for introductions. We're gonna skip kind of the round robin name and age of kids for right now, just because many of us know each other and just to save a little bit of time. But as more people join at the end of our session, we are gonna have some time for questions and answers and discussion. And so if you chime into that, feel free to just give us your name and the age of your kids. For those of you who don't know my backstory, I think all of you do, hopefully, but I've worked in early childhood education for 12 years, primarily in New Zealand with birth to 5, both in schools and then placing nannies with a home-based education program. So we had to hire teachers to be working in children's homes, implementing curriculum, and doing more than just babysitting. And so coming to Little Star and surviving COVID, I think what inspired both Laurel and I to do this is just recognizing how much more time we have at home with our kids and how much more responsibility some of us feel for executing learning in addition to what you're getting at Little Star, or if you're not at Little Star or at a school right now, to kind of supplement what they might get elsewhere. So we hope that this will be fun. I will get way too excited and giddy about rice and kinetic sand, and I warn you now. Laurel.
Oh, yes. I know. I thought about like bringing some of Kate's slime on here, but I was a little worried about my computer. Hi, you guys. It's nice to see everyone. I was so excited to see how many RSVP'd to this. And Melissa and some of my friends that I haven't seen in a long time. So yay. I applaud everyone for getting through this. We're trying the best we can. And I just love this. This was Geva's idea, and I just am totally on board with it. Oh, thank you, Kate. She heard me. Bring the slime. Anyway, so Geva's so on point that like we all need ways to like engage at home and how we can do it. So this is kind of like Geva and I's like passion, our go-to when we're feeling like we're just gonna pull our hair out. So I think I'm sure everyone kind of understands the basics of it, but we kind of wanted to dive in a little deeper to some of our tricks and tips. So thank you for joining us. And then Geva, do you want to sort of kick us off here and then we'll start on a couple of these slides?
Yeah, so we've got a short little presentation and I'm gonna share my screen for that. And Laurel, tell me if this is hopefully gonna work. And then we can, hey Rowan, who do you see in this picture? I can't actually see Rowan, I can't see enough faces at once. Is he recognizing his buddy?
He said that's actually Huck.
Good. All right, so here are some of our actual kids, not Pinterest kids. These are real live Little Star children doing sensory play. And I just thought this it kind of captured the joy and the mess and the focus and engagement that these sort of activities can set up. So yeah, there's a little taste of it. And let's see, Laurel, there you go.
Oh yeah, can you guys see that? Okay, I'm not gonna really read this verbatim because it's pretty, we're gonna share this afterwards too. But what I wanted to say about sensory play, to sum it up, is that it just is any activity that engages the senses, really. And we'll get into that in the next slide of like what specific senses we're engaging. But what I love about it is it's not just for children. So you can dive in and do it with your kids. I think adults benefit from this, or it's a time to just kind of get some space and give your kids some time to have some alone time so you can make a phone call. I also love to think of sensory play as like another form of yoga or mindfulness. Like it's something that benefits your basic well-being. And this isn't something that we think of, Geva and I at least don't think of it as like just being for children. It's definitely introduced at a young age as infants, and then it goes with children hopefully as they grow. But I think of it as something I jump into a lot, is like what my body needs at this time. But when we're thinking about kids and sensory play, it's a way that they're learning. It's basically training your brain to respond appropriately to different sensorial information as it comes at you. So from touching, seeing, tasting stuff, your brain is learning the info that's coming, and then it's figuring out how to respond, I would say is a good way of putting it. So we also, I think children and adults, we learn best and we retain the most when the information is engaged through senses. So the more senses that we use for something, a lesson or learning something, the more information we actually retain from that. Yeah, that's what I would say on the first slide, Geva. You want to jump in?
One of the key benefits too, I think, as Laurel shared, mindfulness and just kind of another form of learning, is that sensory play offers no failure. And for so many of our children, or ourselves, they can lose concentration and they can lose engagement as soon as they feel like they're failing. And there's no way to fail with sensory play. And so a lot of the language or math or classification, identification, sorting, labeling, you can layer all of that into sensory play without this sort of pass-fail feeling that children as young as toddlers feel. They know when they can or can't do something, and sensory play really kind of eliminates that as being an engagement ender.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we've got those 5 senses. Those are the ones we're talking about that we want to, get the feedback through. And I think immediately when we think of sensory play, we think of the things that we are touching. Right? I think of like Play-Doh, I think of sticky slime, rice, but there's more to it than that. There's a lot of sensory learning for young children, especially infants, comes through taste, because they're putting everything in their mouth so that they understand what it is. Yeah, smell is a big one. And then the way the light receptors that help us perceive things through sight, how we see things, and then also how it sounds. And before we jump into this brainstorm, I think it's important to note that what we see, especially at Little Star, is that all children receive sensory feedback differently. So when we, like for example, in the toddler room in Twist, we have one child who just does not like his hands to get sticky. Like he immediately needs to wash it off if he's painting and it gets on his finger. But he's able to, with consistency now, even today was this beautiful moment where he just was in it it was a brush painting work, but he decided to make it finger painting work. And it was then up the arms. The kids, right? There's the ones that you're like, we're going to paint with the brush. And then all of a sudden it's all over their body, right? Because they need that much of an experience for it. But there's some that aren't going to be there, and that's okay. we meet them where they're at, right? Like she was saying, it's like totally about, it's not about failure, and it's about each individual experience and how you might be able to bring in music to help the touch sensation be less intense. Maybe music helps tone down the touch sensation, or vice versa. Maybe the touch sensation helps with music time in the classroom or at home. You know, some children don't love loud sounds. So it's important when we're like, hey, let's do Play-Doh, that the outcome's going to be different for every child. So, right, Geva?
Mm-hmm. We actually had a scenario recently with a young student who transitioned to EC and responded very significantly to the sound of the bathroom fan in one of our classrooms. And it was just such a good reminder of these sensory inputs and how, like, you know, hearing for me might be a positive sensory input and I might respond positively to music. But for this student, the sound of the bathroom fan was too much. And so we had to like get creative around, okay, we know there's some sensitivity there. So what is that sense that provides some comfort? You know, is there something that we can build in that's a touch or a smell or a visual, so that that hearing, that auditory input, isn't the one that's setting off in an uncomfortable way? And I think as you set up these activities in your home, and we'll talk about this at a later slide, observation is so key, because what you need to know is which are the inputs that your child enjoys and will stay engaged with, and skip the others. Or, you know, if they feel important, introduce them in intentional ways. It depends on how you're using it. If you're using it to make a phone call, give them what they like. So observation and reflecting on what these 5 senses are and how your child prefers or responds is a really important part of doing this work at home.
Yeah. Does anyone have any thoughts on this? We said let's brainstorm how we could use the senses to engage in different ways. I'm wondering if anyone has any like aha they'd like to share about this.
Or favorite activities that you do, and Play-Doh is a great one.
I'm doing this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Hi, Melissa.
So Emmett was diagnosed with sensory processing disorder. So I'm really interested in this webinar, and just, you guys are so full of knowledge. I love it. But he really does not like any touching, like anything on his hands. He was tongue-tied when he was born, severely tongue-tied. So we have a lot of problems with him trying new foods and eating. So I really struggle with that. It's mealtime is like a huge disaster for us a lot of times. But you know, he is, on the other hand, like, he's so sharp with other things. So like seeing things, hearing things, like those don't bother him. Mm-hmm. And then Charlotte, she's the opposite end of the spectrum. She will paint her entire body. She will stamp herself. She will tape things to herself. But like the toilet, like she will not go to the bathroom anywhere like that has a loud, like she gets startled very easily. So hearing, I notice a lot of times she will cover her ears, or it's just very interesting how different the kids are. But
yeah, and that is challenging to set up one activity for 2 kids when
it is, because the kinetic sand and like the Play-Doh and stuff, Charlie really engages in that. Emmett, he's like, ugh, get this off of me.
Yeah, I have a couple ideas for you, Nicola, that I can email afterwards for Emmett, and some of them will be shown in some of the upcoming slides, but like simple practical ways of setting up essentially one thing in 2 different ways.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Melissa, did you want to share something too?
Oh, well, I was just saying that I'm just excited to hear ideas, because I feel like what we do for sensory play, I mean, I just feel like I don't do enough. I mean, we do Play-Doh, but for me, the most they do is probably like bubble baths and stuff. So I'm just excited to kind of hear. I've seen a lot of ideas, but I don't really know how you implement them. So anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Well, let's get there, huh? That's what we all want. We want to know, okay, what do I do tomorrow?
Do you guys want me to share something that's been working well at the kitchen counter?
Yes.
Those
Okay.
are always good ones. Kitchen counter ones. We need those.
Yeah. So we always have like a bowl of salt sitting around, and then some watercolor, like liquid watercolor. You can just get them in little bottles, and you squirt a little bit in a jar, and I give them like a piece of paper and a bowl of salt and a paintbrush and a couple different jars. And like my expectation initially was painting, but that's not the outcome. It's like science and salt and here and the bowl and mom, I need more water. So like, I don't know. I feel like water and another element, like any flour or salt or anything that they can add in lots of bowls, and readjusting your expectations so you can cook dinner. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
love that, Kara. That's like exactly what it is. It's really, that's what we want to kind of get to here, is how simple and accessible it really can be. I also hear you, Melissa. It's like, yeah, Play-Doh and bubbles. And I feel like growing up, that's about all I had too. I mean, but there are some pretty clever ideas out there that like the salt, that we'll dive into.
So, Kara, I just have to give you an extension for your guy on that one with the salt, if you have it readily available. Little, like all of your broken chalk, bring a little piece of broken chalk inside, mortar and pestle with the salt, and they will grind for hours. And then, like, again, the extension on that is have like something like, a little Glover Street jar and funnel, and then they pour the ground colorful salt, and they can, for older kids, they can make layers of those colors. And I don't know how many hours in EC afternoons we would just be grinding the chalk and the salt, and they loved it.
Yeah, so we kind of dove into a lot of these benefits already, the language development, and cognitive growth. I mean, it's because as you're doing that, your brain is taking it all in. I think it's also really fantastic to think about how memories are associated with our senses. I was thinking about this the other day because we were baking with cinnamon, and immediately cinnamon reminds me of cooking with my grandmother, like making applesauce, I think, and adding the cinnamon. So when your sense memory is like stimulated, it can bring you back to this time. And it's like triggers these flashbacks for people. I don't know if anyone else has things like that they can associate with. Maybe it's even just the sound of skiing on the cold snow. Like, does that remind you of being a child doing it? There's different ways, but it's just super powerful. And so this is how learning happens, and how our brain is able to then move forward with learning with all these different memories. Can anyone think of something? I just love to hear about the associations. Smell's a good one. It's an easy one, but there's probably others, like there's touch, something you hear. Does anyone have a good one?
This is going to be weird, but bleach. My grandma used to have an old-fashioned sewing or a washing machine that she would actually roll the clothes through a roller and strain. So every laundry day, we would go over there, and she would be doing her linens or her sheets. And so like when I do laundry, it just reminds me of, grandma and laundry day on the weekends.
Oh, that's sweet. That's really sweet.
Yeah,
So-
but one more thing on that quick before you move on, Jiva. So then, like the language thing for me is like, and I'm sure you'll get into this, Jiva, when we talk about how to engage with it, but those describer words that we're looking for, like sticky and hot and wet, those come out. That language comes out through doing this experiential learning, which is so fantastic. The science piece is like, for them to understand how to pour something just enough where it doesn't go over the top. That's, spatial awareness right there. I mean, understanding that's part of just that natural effect of doing it and playing with this.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you with older children, I think those early identifiers that Laurel just spoke of, hot, cold, sticky, that's the starting point. And then it really does offer up to us with our engagement in sensory play to start introducing those larger concepts of comparison and classifying, and which is heavier, which is denser. There's all these ways that we can start introducing much more complex concepts than just playing with pouring water, right? And so I think that is where kind of getting your language, your sentences, your goal, although it's, dangerous to have goals with children, but just thinking about what you're entering into that activity with, or what opportunities there might be, can really help it feel like a learning experience rather than just providing entertainment. So a lot of the common materials that I'm sure many of you have or have used that are, affordable and common in the home, ingredients for Play-Doh, rice, beans, and lentils. Those are really fun for all sorts of sensory tubs, for digs, like putting them in a storage tub and hiding puzzle pieces amongst the legumes so that there's a step before just doing the puzzle. They have to dig the pieces out and then place them. Any of those things can be colored to create mixing opportunities. Shaving foam is a favorite, which is what you saw Huck using, Rowan. I would just say be aware of any chemical or fragrance sensitivities for the skin, or scent aversions. Those shaving foams can be really strong smelling. Food coloring, watercolors are great. Bubbles, spaghetti noodles, or dried pasta, those can be used fresh or cooked. In this photo of my little guy, Tommy, you can see him there. He's classifying, and that was completely independent. There's no teacher telling him to do that. There actually wasn't even an example set up, but intuitively he sees that selection or that variety of noodles and the cups, and he's going to go through and sort those. And again, the extension from that, if you were sitting with him, is can he describe them? And for a 2-year-old, perhaps he's going to call one of those pokey. Maybe he's going to call one of those a circle. It doesn't matter. But what his brain is doing is sorting and classifying, which is an early mathematics skill. And then, as Kara or someone said, any empty containers, yogurt tubs, jars, vases, Tupperwares, anything that they can just mix from, pour between, add to. It doesn't require fancy materials to set up these sort of activities at home. Some of the materials that we love and that you may have or may choose to purchase. I actually have a couple of classroom friends in the Meadow Room, and we share these materials. We'll kind of like create something and then pass them on. And as Laurel said, after this, we will be sending a slide pack out, and all of these are live links to some of our favorite products or recommended purchasing locations. So kinetic sand is wonderful. We have a recipe for that you can make yourself that we'll be sharing. Water beads are really fun, especially mixed with shaving foam. Baby oil, funnels, scoops, tongs, little teeny tiny things that they can use. Any random small world play objects, as you're going through your home, and if there's broken or missing materials, take a second look at them before you toss them out. Maybe you just have a box where you put lost puzzle pieces or things that could be used in a different way, especially with this sort of small world play. I found all these old Christmas ornaments that I didn't want anymore, and I was about to get rid of them, and then I went, oh my gosh, those would be perfect for these sensory packs that we're providing to all of our families. So some of you may get my old Christmas ornaments next week. As I said, a mortar and pestle, essential oils are great for engaging the senses. Again, be aware of any skin sensitivities. Hot oils or citrus oils can be reactive. Kitchen scales, balance buckets. There's a great one from Lakeshore Learning that we really love. And then Discount School Supplies has a really great list of sensory items. There's so many, but I tend to not not feel like I need to purchase something in order to set up this play. You really can do it with the simplest of things in your home. I think this is probably my most favorite slide. If you could capture one thing, it would be this. And I would say that the most common mistake or opportunity for failure is just not giving yourself enough time to set up, introduce, or prepare the activity. You know, in Montessori, we're always talking about preparing the environment. And the reason for that is that the outcomes are usually more successful. And so when I am kind of in a fluster and go, oh, I need you guys to do something here, let's set up some sensory, you know, it just, the children are part of it during the setup. It loses some of the magic. They don't get a intentional slow setup. And so this isn't always possible, but when it is, I really do recommend getting everything ready in advance and then preparing the child with statements like, when I open this lid, we're going to keep everything inside this container, you know, or where does the rice go? Does the rice go on the floor? No, the rice goes in the container. And setting those norms, setting those boundaries ahead of time. Because if you just lay out the rice, it's going to start getting poured on the floor. You're going to get frustrated. They're not going to understand that that wasn't the objective of the rice. And suddenly your fantastic sensory activity is feeling really obnoxious for everyone involved. So again, with Montessori, we believe that fewer words are better. Simple, short, clear sentences. Your children are so excited to be engaging in what you're setting up that they're only going to hear about 20% of what you're saying. So short introductions. And then also just containing the activity, thinking about your own benefit of, okay, how much of a nightmare is this going to be for me? And I did it the other night. It was dinner time. I just wanted to cook. I was like, oh, I have that weird snow dough recipe. Now's the perfect time to try it. Terrible time to try it. It was in the middle of my kitchen floor. The snow dough was everywhere. I was not enjoying it. I didn't have a towel set up. It was just all of these little things that reminded me to kind of slow down and put a little bit of intention before the activity. Sensory tables are great. We have linked one that's from IKEA that's affordable, and it does make this sort of activity really nice, but I tend to prefer just the large storage totes from the hardware store. They're so nice to be able to put a lid on it quickly and get it put away, and they're wide enough that if you have multiple children, you can have them all gathered around a side without it being sort of a fight over who's getting the tub or the bowl. But kitchen mixing bowls and buckets can work too. You can really find anything that can contain the activity. And then thinking ahead about the cleanup, because it's going to be messy, and that you just got to embrace that part of it. And so whether that's having a big queen sheet or a towel that's designated to this sort of stuff, I encourage you to always include your children in the cleanup too. Don't just take that on yourself, having small spray bottles or dustpans and brushes, just like we do in the classroom, so that they can understand the start of the activity, the use of the activity, and the cleanup of the activity. And that really helps us too with having them in the classroom if they're having that same sort of expectations at home. And they'll be familiar with it, and they actually really enjoy it too. So have them be part of the cleanup. And then this we kind of touched on already as far as observing as you go and asking those questions like, do they like using their hands or do they like using utensils more? And being aware of that. Do they seem to respond more to mixing, putting all together and combining? Or do they like pouring and having more isolated, separate mixtures and concoctions? And then just being aware of the positive or negative responses to any of these ingredients. So that's a little bit about that. And so now some fun, inspiring photos for us to talk from. Laurel?
I know, these are great. I could have just put like pages of photos, but you know, I'm sure most of you have seen these. A lot of these we find from Instagram. Jiva and I will be like up at 11 p.m. being like texting each other like, have you seen this one? This one's fantastic. We're a little crazy. But what I love about a lot of these is how simple they are. Essentially Ziploc bags filled with different things. I mean, babies love this stuff for tummy time. It's so fun, especially if we've got kiddos that don't love tummy time. Switching it up, you can make them seasonal. You could just throw some paint in a bag and they can squish the paint around. Sometimes even our teachers put a piece of paper in the bag with a couple dollops of paint, and then they get to squish it, and then it's art for later. That's kind of fun.
And these are great if you don't like mess. The activities inside of bags are a really, really good option. This edible sand is actually just ground up graham crackers, if anybody's wondering what the ingredients are. Just any sort of smashed up cracker.
Yeah, another good one for babes because they want to put everything in their mouth is just yogurt with some food coloring in it and just on the table. Blue yogurt, you know, it's fun. It looks like paint, but they can eat it and it's healthy. And then is that green pea? I can't quite see it, but I think that's the green peas, which is hilarious, smashing the peas. You could do that with water beads too, or something that squishes. Yeah,
All right.
love these. And then, the contact paper is that sticky stuff that the kids are putting the popsicle sticks on and the googly eyes. Love doing that. You could do that with nature items outside, like leaves or flower petals. And if you have a sliding glass door or something, it could be sort of something that could live there for a while, and they could add stuff to it after you go on walks during the day. And then you could even complete it, put the other side of the paper on, and then cut them out, and they could be like hanging decorations. Is that like Jello excavation? I love that. So good. And then Play-Doh robots, like different loose parts that you have. I mean, my son James loves to go out to the shop because Eric just has these bins of screws and nuts and bolts, and he just tries to fit them together in different ways, and that's just so entertaining. So we just made him a little corner, and that's what he gets to do. But that just reminded me we should add Play-Doh to it. That'd be hilarious. He could make like Play-Doh robots out there.
Yeah.
And then like ice scooping water tables, I think is what that one is on the far right. Just making it cold versus just water is great. I love that addition to it.
And I really like that picture because it exemplifies like everything we've just been talking about. Although that's just an under the bed storage container. Ice cubes, you know, our IKEA plastic cups and measuring cups, like that is not complex or expensive, but the little touches, like having the smaller container inside of the larger container for spills, that's what makes this work for you and the child. And so just starting to track, okay, that's a really useful tip, or let's try that next time. Snow right now is a great one to set up like this. The other day I brought in 2 bins of snow side by side and had one each in a primary color. And, you know, at first the boys were just playing with them and scooping, and then the mixing started, and they were creating a new color, and then it all melted while they were doing something else, and they were baffled by that. And so snow is a great one to be working with right now.
Yeah. Am I still talking, or is it your turn?
You're still talking.
Okay. So then we've got rice. Yes, I love the rice. I was a little bit scared about rice at first because it feels like it's just going to go everywhere. But if you can plan ahead with the sheet underneath, I love the sheet because then you just scoop it all up. I do that with my Legos too. Legos live in a fitted sheet, by the way. It's like the way to do it because then they can just pull them out. But yeah, so scooping and pouring, I love the jack-o'-lantern one. And then you can do different ecosystems and have a little bit of, you know, science learning in here. And then I love the like hidden animals too, where you have to discover what they are, and then you're working on language and sort of, you know, you could do that with all different types of things. Just you wouldn't have to even do it with animals. You could do it whatever kind of theme you wanted. And then ice cubes. Yes, love ice cubes. I have the little silicone ones, so they're different shapes, and freeze those. Those are really fun.
Mm-hmm. So
Oh,
we kind of sorted these to start at the younger end and then get older. So here, I mean, again, any of this would work if you have multiple age children in your household, which is something that you know we are often thinking about. But this also creates some opportunity for the more mature children to be actually trying to accomplish something, right? To have this purpose of, here are all of your muddy trucks, and now can you get them clean? I do this one quite a lot with any sort of toy. I allow the boys to paint on the toys first. They love painting their dinosaurs and then giving their dinosaurs a soapy bath. Anything going from dirty to clean is usually a winner. I haven't done this painted box cake before, but with all of the Amazon deliveries that are happening right now, I've been kind of on a search for what to do with cardboard and packaging. And so I thought this was kind of a fun one. Again, kind of more gross motor, because you can make it really big and tall and wide, or have a purpose such as a cake. Another one that I used to do in the classroom a lot, which was really fun in the afternoons when energy was just challenging, is bubble wrap around kids' feet. Wrap their feet in bubble wrap, make a runway of construction paper, paint on paper plates, and they get to step in the paint with their feet and then walk along the runway making tracks with the bubble wrap. And like, I mean, talk about sensory overload though, because the bubble wrap is popping and the paint is squishing and they're making art. And I mean, it was either a winner or like, I mean, Emmett might have been like, I do not want to participate in that. So, but it was a lot of fun. And then, as you know, with the rice, there's a great example of how, you know, yes, you're touching it, you're feeling it, you're digging in it, but hey, let's do some writing of numbers or letters or drawing a smiley face or whatever, starting to make those patterns. And I find that rice and sand is so just meditative. I mean, I walk into the Rainbow Room classroom and they have those sand trays with the balls, and I go to them instantly every time. And there's just something really grounding about that activity for my sensory preferences. Speaking of the smells, Nicola, this might be one that Emmett would enjoy. It's harder to set up scent activities for me for whatever reason, but they usually do hold my guys' attention for quite a long time. And I liked this one because then they're also connecting it to some images. And so it kind of has that extension for some of your older children of having to actually match the smell and again, identify. Yeah, there would be some fun ways to do this in different ways. Essential oils, different food products. Yeah, kind of a fun one. And then of course, color mixing, again, just Tupperwares and some Perry bottles, squirting and mixing, and this could be really fun with snow as well. And I really like rice, you guys. Laurel does not like rice. I love rice. And so I saw this one and was like, oh my goodness, construction, creative, just loved that. And again, you know, JMO could take the lead on creating that, and Tommy could then just enjoy the pouring, scooping action side of it, because it's hard to make this work for two kids at one time. And there we have it. So we wanted to show you some of that, and now with kind of our last little bit of time, I would love anyone to share any of their favorite ideas or ask questions about, like, okay, I hate rice, what else do you have? Or I don't have food coloring, and how can I create a color activity? Just anything that you would like to share or ask. We've got a little bit of time to popcorn.
Quickly, though, before we jump in, I see a couple of things in the chat box. Kara said that she likes to freeze small toys in cocktail ice cubes. Yeah, little excavation projects. Those are perfect. And then Nicola's asking, how do you make it orange? I don't know.
Do you mean the rice, Nicola?
The jack-o'-lantern rice. Like, was it orange rice?
So all of you are receiving a sensory take-home kit next week with some colored rice. And I just literally dump rice in any sort of bucket or container, drops of food coloring or watercolor, stir, 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 and then put it out on a cookie sheet or something. I put it by my fireplace so that it will just kind of dry out pretty quickly. But yeah, that's how I dye rice.
I guess my biggest question, since Emmett has had some sensory processing, we did some occupational therapy with him, and they kind of pushed his boundaries a bit and wanted him to try new things. What do you guys know about, how far should I go with, almost challenging him? I don't know if that's the right word, but does anyone have any advice on, like he won't even let the dog, like he won't pet the dog, like to let the dog lick him, like he won't, so I mean, just things that get him out of his comfort zone.
Yeah. I mean, I have strong feelings just with my Montessorian hat on of always following the child. I think the occupational therapist is the right person to push boundaries, and in that environment and in that controlled amount of time, that's the appropriate place for something to be pushed. I think you as a mother don't have to take on that responsibility of trying to push through something, and just creating different opportunities and continuing to create them and allow him to have that freedom of choice and engage if and when and how he wants to is really important. I think that being intentional about making it as alluring as possible, if he loves Blaze the monster truck, then maybe use Blaze the monster truck in some mud and see if that will, win him over. But I mean, again, it's just the Montessorian in me. Like, I wouldn't put it on you to push him into any sort of sensory engagement that he's not going to enjoy, because then you're not going to enjoy it. And then it's not going to be an option that's fulfilling at home.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious what Kara might think of this too, just with older kids. But I also think that the consistency is kind of key for it. If it's something that's coming up just randomly, we're going to do this experience, that's going to be a lot more challenging. If it becomes part of your daily routine that every day at this time we're doing some kind of sensorial experience and he can choose to be a part of it or not, I think that helps.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have any favorites or aversions? Yeah. Kara.
My kids just love the kinetic sand. We do a lot. They just love to, drive their cars through kinetic sand, and then I just have to close my eyes because it gets all over the floor and it's all tracked all over the house. But yeah, that's one of their favorite things is the kinetic sand.
Speaking of driving cars, Melissa, have you ever covered the table in construction paper and given them cars that they can put in paint and then drive along the paper?
Oh,
That's a
no.
really fun one to make tracks and yeah, kind of a similar but different experience.
Yeah. One other thing I was just gonna say, I have older kids. Older, he's 11, but I feel like it really brings out his young, I don't know, the kid in him. Like, he loves to play and do things with his younger siblings, and then that gets them excited because he's playing with them. And so I like the ideas for older kids, but I think they have just as much fun kind of doing some of the toddler type activities too. So
mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that I've noticed with my kids is I tend to bring out these sort of opportunities that have more of a goal outcome. Like, for example, the rice with writing letters. I would always do that in the morning with this one when he's the most focused, and you can kind of get that beautiful concentration from a well-rested child. But then But then I bring out sensory every night at dinner time, kind of like what Kara was describing, but it's a much more dialed back version of something that's more like walk away and they can do it, because I find that that's when they're fighting the most, that's when they're struggling the most, and that connection to that sensory play seems to be really comforting for them at that time of day and really helpful for me. So as far as kind of routines or times for opportunity, I would just think about that too, like setting up something that's complex or challenging for the sensory input at dinner time might not be the best time to do that, but setting up something like those robots with Play-Doh, that might be perfect at 5 o'clock.
Melissa, something we just did tonight, Kate and I, because it's cold, we filled water balloons with water and color, shook them around, and then we left them outside to freeze. So we have a bunch of colored orbs. It might take a couple of days. I guess if it freezes good tonight, we will pop the balloons, and then you have these cool orbs that you could put in a bin with, like, you know, other things that they could pour rock, like ice cream salt, the really thick grain salt on top of it, so it sort of slowly melts it, because that's the science part of that. But yeah, balloons and food coloring.
So it's just water and food coloring, and you shake it up, and
I
it'll.
just shake them, throw them outside.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't
My
know if
kids
they'll
love
fully
balloons.
freeze tonight. We need like a good freeze night, right? Like they might be still kind of soft in the middle, but that's kind of a nice, it's good for her. It's giving her that awareness of our weather and what happens at night. And yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, that's a really good one, Laurel. I haven't done that. I want to stick them in the bathtub, like bring them in the big frozen things and then put them in the bathtub with the boys and they could watch the melt process. And like, I feel like that could go kind of in a cool direction.
Yeah.
The bathtub is a really fun way to do messy stuff too. Like a lot, like water beads, I often put in the bath because they're my aversion. I just really don't love water beads. So I'll put them in the tub, or anything that I'm kind of dreading usually ends up in the bathtub. I've seen a lot of great, the Busy Toddler. I don't know if any of you are on Instagram, but the Busy Toddler is an account that Laurel and I love, and we've got a short list of kind of our favorites that we follow that we'll share with you. But she has 3 children of varying ages, and I really like what she shares because it just shows how you can take one thing and tailor it to the different ages that you're serving. So bathtubs are good.
Does anyone have any good food ones for taste that they're doing this time of year? You know, when we're thinking about cooking, like how do we engage our children to be helpful, maybe, or I don't know, or just something around the way something tastes?
Well, I don't know. This is odd, but Rowan loves dog treats. He discovered that on his own. So the dog gets a dog treat every night, and so does he.
Oh, I love it. Rowan, that's lovely.
Well,
Oh, boy.
it's very strange.
Oh, I was gonna say Kate really loves taking apart pomegranates. That's a fun one. It's a lot of work. It keeps her busy for a while.
Tommy is big on slicing celery right now. So I've got one of, you've probably seen them in our classrooms. They're sort of the toddler knife, and celery is really great because it takes maximum effort for him, but it's not that hard, and also it inspires him to taste it. And celery is a very strong and kind of different flavor that it's funny to watch him. He's like not sure, but then he'll keep cutting and he'll try it again. And pretty much anything that he can cut himself, he'll try. So for any picky eaters or kind of flavor aversions, I would say give him a knife. A safe one.
Yeah, I love all the things, Kara, about glow in the dark, because it does get dark so early. Like, what are we doing to kind of take advantage of that? That's great.
Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of dance parties in our house lately. We have a colored disco ball and turn the lights off, turn the disco ball on, and dance. That's kind of another go-to. Any other questions or comments? is there any age group that you feel like we haven't given you inspiration for? I feel like looking at all of you, we are totally in it with EC and toddlers. So hopefully we've kind of focused on that a little. So after this, we will email the slide pack around, as well as some recipes for our favorite goo and goops. We're also going to share just a really interesting article from Sammy Lasky around sensory input and just what that, how that feels and what that looks like, and some great leading questions to ask yourself. Laurel, do you want to just touch on Sammy's training?
Oh, well, I mean, maybe I don't know the official stuff. I'm sorry, but she does work for the school district right now. Is she the physical therapist? I'm sorry, I don't know her title. Thank you, Kara. The OT, yeah. Yeah, she's fantastic. She's worked for Little Star a little bit here and there, and she'll do trainings for us often. She's fantastic. She helps a lot with things like heavy work for kids who really are kind of bouncing around in the classroom. She gives us ideas for heavy work, which, I mean, that's another great list, Geva, of things to do for kids to kind of slow them down if they're ping-ponging in the middle of wintertime. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, so we'll share that. And as you say heavy work, and I look at some of these faces, several of your children absolutely love the big picking up and lifting, big water bottles filled that they have to try and lug, or garden patio bricks that they have to flip over and try and roll up a hill. That maximum effort is a sensory input. And so we didn't actually include any of that, and it just popped in my brain. Laurel, it'd be fun to add a few of those in there too, some of that big work for toddler and EC kids, because I see several of your kids seeking that out at school.
Yeah, and I can think of you, Melissa, too. I think it's like, yeah, they just like move all your furniture in your house 5 feet to the right or something, you know, like, like something like that is what is really simple.
Totally. Well, I am so glad that you all felt inspired to join us, and I hope that you enjoyed this, and that you find the resources helpful. It's fun. It's fun to do, and if you come up with something really exciting that goes well, feel free to email it to Laurel and I, because we get really giddy over this stuff, and so we can celebrate sensory successes with you. I promise.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you guys for putting this on. I feel a little sad for Rosemary to not be got the Little Star card, and we really miss Little Star, but and she looks forward to coming back. But thank you guys for putting this on and including us.
Absolutely. And for those of you that aren't at Little Star, Alyssa and Melissa, know that everybody that attends this, we have these winter sensory kits that we'll find a way to get them to you. And there's a Play-Doh set or a rice set. And so, yeah, we're excited to share that with families going into the break, to have some stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for including everyone and sharing it with people that aren't in Little Star, because it's good information and stuff that, you know, yeah, we need to hear and learn about. And so I appreciate you including. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, Melissa. Nice to see you.
All right, guys. I'm going to go see if my kids are in
You
bed.
too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you so much.
Thank you.